Hi guys, and welcome to my capstone called Crafting Joy. Let's go back in time. It's 2017, I'm in 5th grade, and my family is going to Walt Disney World, Florida. Now who wouldn't be excited for this trip? But what I didn't know was how special this trip was going to be. Disney had just introduced Pandora, a world replicated after the movie Avatar. And the highlight of this world was the ride Flight of Passage. This ride transports you with immersive colors, sounds, and smells. The ride was so awesome. But weeks later, something crazy happened. We were back in Colorado when all of a sudden we were walking through a store and we were transported back to Florida. But why? Was it the way the store looked? No. Was it the way the music was in the store? No, it wasn't. It took me a second to realize it, but the smell of the candles throughout the store reminded me of Pandora and transported us back to Florida, even though we were in Colorado. Is it really possible that the smell of something can transport you? Yeah. The smell of the sweet hibiscus mixed with salty seawater transported us. Now, the smell of Pandora was the most powerful ingredient in its aesthetic. And in 2017, I realized this for the first time, but in 2024, I now realize how an aesthetic can be positive and is a combination of colors, music, smells, and even vibes. Today, we're going to talk about how an aesthetic is made, the care that people put into them, and the power they have over your experience. Through positive and negative aesthetics, your perception and your mood is formed. Aesthetics play to all of your senses, putting you in a specific mood, and as we'll see in a minute, it's all in the details. I praise you because I am fearfully and wonderfully made. Your works are wonderful. This Psalm of David shows us how God made things wonderfully, and it should inspire us to do the same. Today we're going to look at the 3 steps you can take to create a glorifying aesthetic for God. Beauty is worth our time because God created beauty first. The first of these steps is focusing on all 5 of your senses. And it's more than just visuals. It's sight, sound, smell, touch, and even taste. Here's an example. This past fall, my family went to Vidanta. Vidanta is a resort in Mexico that is beautiful, and we go there sometimes with our family. But this time, I focused on something different. As I walked around, I tried to take the time and see what made it so magical. To start, the resort is filled with thick palm paths and glowing beaches as you walk through, and you can see how intentional they are with each thing in their aspect, speaking to each sense with each thing they put into their aesthetic, building a beautiful aesthetic. The first thing I noticed was the scents. Throughout the entire resort, they hide these little diffusers everywhere you go that pump out this beautiful floral scent that is clean, special, and makes it memorable. The next thing I noticed in Vedanta was the sounds. Not only did they have background music literally everywhere you went that created this amazing vibe, but the deep forest sounds and the sounds of birds and wind chimes also created an enchanting aesthetic. Now, Vedanta isn't the only place that pays attention to all 5 senses when they're creating an aesthetic. Weddings do too. Coordinators pay attention to each 5 senses when they're creating the perfect, stunning, and memorable day. First, they focus on tastes through creating a well-crafted menu that makes the guests so happy. They also focus on sight and touch by creating a layout and experience that the guests will enjoy. As you can see, an aesthetic is more than just sight. And all the senses are at play. Sight, sound, smell, touch, taste. They all contribute to one beautiful aesthetic. Anjan Chatterjee, the author of The Aesthetic Brain, wrote that aspects of an aesthetic mix and match in flexible ways to give us the experience of beauty. Beauty is a complex balance of all the different senses working together to create one beautiful aesthetic. Weddings create beauty, Vedanta creates beauty, and each of us do it too. It all flows from what God wonderfully made first. Eden. Now, the Garden of Eden was exceptionally wonderful. It was beautiful. But have you ever thought about what the Garden of Eden smelled like? Did it smell like flowers, rain, freshly cut grass? What about the lighting in the Garden of Eden? Was it harsh or was it pleasant? What about the sounds? I don't know about you, but when I picture the Garden of Eden, I picture sun coming through the clouds, the smell of flowers, you can hear rivers flowing behind you, and it's really just beautiful. God knew what he was doing when he created the Garden of Eden. He stimulated every single sense there, making things beautiful. And as Christians, we want to create this same beauty all around us, surrounding ourselves with beauty, so we can ultimately glorify God. And it can be simple, it really can. You can start by lighting a candle, sitting in the sunshine. Maybe you have to be intentional with sound, even if that means silence. Sense by sense, we step closer to the beauty of God and glorifying him. The second step to creating this glorifying beauty for God is being intentional with details. Details are the game changer for creating this beauty for God. Do you remember my trip to Vedanta in Mexico with my family? Vedanta focused on all 5 senses, but they also focused on details when creating their aesthetic. Whether this was through putting lamps in dark corners to make things beautiful, putting chocolates on the beds when you would come back, maybe just folding towels and tissues into cute ways to make you feel a sense of happiness. They even put transporting decorations wherever you were to make you feel this beautiful aesthetic. Vedanta's efforts made everything more meaningful. Do you know Mrs. Elizabeth Boltz, Emma's mom? If you don't, you should know her. She's pretty cool. And she's especially good at putting details into everything she does. Sometimes spending hours creating a perfect theme or menu for a party she's going to have. Her guests feel her love from these details. Some things she's done include mummy pot pies at a Halloween party, Super Bowl parties that she's decorated so beautifully, and she even has a Christmas tree in her kitchen that she decorates for each holiday. These details make an aesthetic 10 times more special, resulting in beauty that glorifies God, who loves the details. Because think about it. If God even knows how many hairs are on each of our head, certainly he sees the details that we add into things. So if all the senses and all the details make an aesthetic, what's next? The final step for creating this glorifying beauty for God it's more of a warning. As Christians, we want to show God's goodness with everything we create and put out into the world. Our aesthetic should emulate Christ. And you might ask, aren't all aesthetics positive? The answer is no. Let's unravel what I mean. Picture your happy place right now. Picture it in your mind. What is this? This is where you feel joy, peace, and life, where you're most comfortable and safe. What is this place for you? Where is it? Maybe you're thinking of a coffee shop where jazz music is playing, you're sipping on a nice cup of coffee, it's warm and it's raining outside. It sounds wonderful. But what you probably didn't envision was dark woods, gloomy woods, with creepy sounds everywhere you go, and a chilling wind. Stop a second. Why is this picture so unsettling? It's unsettling because of its aesthetic. It has a negative aesthetic. This is why we have to be careful. The different ingredients in an aesthetic shift it to become positive and to be negative. So in January, I surveyed some of my friends and asked them what things came to mind when I said what was beautiful and what was ugly. Some ugly things that they listed included trash, traffic, and mud. Some beautiful things they said were paintings, sunsets, and sunflowers. Do you agree with these things? This might seem obvious, right? And it should. We may think beauty is in the eye of the beholder, but beauty is beautiful to everyone, just like how a negative aesthetic is ugly to each of us. Disney created this positive environment, and Vedanta did. They did this so people could feel a sense of freedom when they would go there. But casinos have a negative aesthetic, a controlling aesthetic. So maybe you haven't been to a casino. Let me describe the different details they use to control their guests. Firstly, they don't have any windows. Why? They don't have any windows so people don't feel a sense of time, so they stay there for so much longer without even knowing it. They also have the sound of slot machines throughout the entire building that create a sense of anxiety that makes people want to gamble. Lastly, they have pure oxygen pumped into the room that stimulates people's brains so they stay awake to gamble longer. Casinos use a negative aesthetic to control their guests and keep their guests in the building for as long as possible. Now, this is negative, and this is ugly. And as Christians, we want beauty. Casinos abuse their aesthetics, but as Christians, we're called to create a positive aesthetic and environment around us wherever we go. Whether that's through our words, actions, music, or just our overall individual aesthetic. We're supposed to emulate Christ, and overall, that is freedom. God's beauty is revealed as goodness through the negative things and hard things in our life. In the world, there's a broken beauty that reflects God, who not only takes a stand with those oppressed and broken, but becomes oppressed and broken himself. God creates this beauty out of darkness, and we are called to do the same. Just think about it. Even the Garden of Eden was literally created from darkness. So I have a friend named Nick, and Nick's from Chicago, and he grew up in the ghetto part of Chicago, and it was rough. But luckily, he loved to paint, and he grew up in a Christian household. So one day, Nick is walking to school, and he gets an idea. So he goes home and starts painting these uplifting posters that have great vibes to spread, and he hangs them up on his walk to school and around his school. Now, Nick built a positive aesthetic to glorify God, and we can do this too. This year, I followed the 3 steps of building a beautiful and glorifying aesthetic for God by using all 5 senses and being intentional with details and choosing to make a positive aesthetic around myself. I did this with my friends through music, maybe some candles, just creating a specific vibe around myself. It's actually incredible how the right song or lighting can shift an entire space to feel better. I also did this digitally with an online aesthetic. I designed ads for SLC, made some SLC merch, and I tried to post positive things on each platform that I controlled. Whether it's through logos, t-shirts, or posters, I tried to emulate Christ and his freedom, creativity, and his hope. I wanted to be a light in the small amount of influence that I had. Crafting this joy showed me how important intentionality is. Following the 3 steps of senses, details, and positivity, I wanted to make it easier to achieve this meaningful beauty to glorify God. And you can do the same. Anyone can do the same. We're made to do this. So, do you remember the happy place you thought of before? I want you to go back there. Can you picture the 5 senses at play there? Maybe it smells sweet. Maybe you hear birds in the background. Or there's a soft breeze that's the right mix of warm and cold that just makes it so much better. These details are what bring it to life for you. Can you see the different details added to it? What about what makes it positive for you? I want to challenge you for the next time you go to your happy place to stop, look around, and think about what details in it make you love it. So even if aesthetics isn't your thing, I want to encourage you as Christians that we care about how places make others feel, how they make us feel, and how they impact everything. When we're building this glorifying beauty for God through senses, details, and positivity, we're supposed to bring hope and life everywhere we go. We should be creating a positive aesthetic like Disney did, Vedanta, Nick, and God. Even though this world is full of darkness, it's blocking people from seeing God's light and his beauty. But we can change that. We can build an aesthetic around us that's not controlling like casinos did, but shows God's beauty. What can we do today? Well, we can start by changing our mood. Maybe changing our playlist. What about changing our words and touch to be more intentional? Perhaps right now you're contributing to a negative aesthetic. Instead, I want to encourage you to lean into what God has made you to do by bringing hope and life, by caring about details the same way God cares about details. We should be making things wonderful, like the Garden of Eden. And remember, it's only 3 steps to create this beautiful aesthetic to glorify God. Taking inspiration from Disney's magic, the essence of Vedanta, and other beautiful aesthetics. Thank you for joining me on this exciting path to glorifying God through the beauty we create.